Meet Ma Dukes. Maureen Yancey, a.k.a. Ma Dukes, is the mother of late James Dewitt Yancey, a.k.a. J Dilla, who was one of the most prolific artists and producers of hip-hop, neo-soul, and other genres of music, producing Grammy-nominated works for Common, The Roots, A Tribe Called Quest, Erykah Badu, and Busta Rhymes, just to name a few. Unfortunately, J Dilla died February 10th, 2006 at his home in Los Angeles, 3 days after his 32nd birthday and the release of his final album, Donuts. It was later revealed that he suffered from a rare blood disease and lupus. But due to Ma Duke's love, hard work, and effort, J Dilla's legacy continues to grow.
Live from the district. 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 Live from the district.
I wanted to say thank you, not only just for being here today, but for what you've done and for what you're doing, because it's amazing to see a mother really get out in front of keeping the legacy of her son alive. And I was thinking before this interview, I was trying to think of any other person in hip hop, just in hip hop, that had like, that there was this energy of about, and this work being put in this activity to keep that person's legacy alive. And I can't think of anyone else that's done it better than you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It has not been an easy task. However, anything that is worthwhile is worth fighting for. And nothing on this earth is going to stop me from saying that my son has everything that he worked for recognized in this world. He created music for the world. It was his first love and his most important thing in his life. And for that, music being what brought me through life, through struggles, I know how important it was to him. He was just a warm and wonderful individual most of his life. And I say that being a mom because who knows, what things he might have said or to someone else that I don't know, maybe I would not have wanted him to say as a man, someone, but he was upright and loved people, period. He was a giving person, no respect for the person. He was just like for everybody, and wanted everybody to succeed and have the most benefits out of their life. So yes, I have to fight for him because that was what I wanted. I raised my children to be free thinkers, not to have a roof over their head where they can't get beyond or think beyond what the normal people wanted him to believe that was his due, being of color. But his mind was so progressive and he was so far above that, ahead of his time. And it was important to me that he received that creative energy by being who he was, not who someone thought he had enough of or that he had grown enough of. And, like this is the norm. You're black. You don't need to think beyond this. This is what you do. And of course you couldn't be a genius. Of course you can't think like that because you don't know what you're doing. But he dared to experiment in his mind from 2 years old till he left here as to something that was greater. And that's what he seek, something greater. And that was how he designed his life.
Okay, so we first met when our dear brother Fife came to town for some event.
Yes, it was about health care.
Yes.
It was about meeting the needs of those that had issues and, a better way of reaching the community in healthcare concerns. Yeah, we were on a panel discussion together, and I remember that.
Right, and you came by the radio station, and I believe I still have that interview somewhere in my archives. I'm going to pull that up, and I'm going to see if I can find it and include it in this interview, because that was the very first time we met. And then, speaking of interviews,
yes,
I wanted to say thank you. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but I did get a chance to look at the Legacy of J Dilla documentary that was on Hulu.
Yes.
I had a chance to actually watch that documentary while I was reading the book Dilla Time. And my interview with Busta Rhymes is in it.
All right.
Yeah, when Busta Rhymes told the story about how Jay had produced the beat for him that was different, and the timing was different. It was like nothing that we've ever heard before. And I wanted to say thank you. People hit me up all the time because some of my interviews have ended up in like Mary J. Blige's documentary, the Future's documentary, and then your son too. But when I saw that, it's like, and I was reading the book Dilla Time, like chills went through my spine to be
a connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
That's
so
awesome. Yes, Busta is one of a kind. I love him dearly.
Now, speaking of one of a kind, your son, JD, I want to have a full interview with you to talk about his life, starting from when he was a child, moving all the way through his legacy and what the work that you're doing right now.
Yes.
In the book Dilla Time, and
I see you. Okay.
Is it a good depiction of what happened first? Because a lot of times people make movies, they write books, and I always wonder, was it really like that? Is it accurate? Is this book accurate?
There are many things in there that are precisely accurate, but there are many things that I had questioned. But being that I wasn't everywhere with my son when he met a lot of people, I won't question everything. I just question the fact that over 200 people were interviewed during the course of doing Dilla Time. And I know my son and his extra introverted self, and even with family, he didn't really speak to many people. If you weren't about that music or producing or in that scientific mindset for music, he had no words for you. And he would not waste time in conversations with anyone that is not about that music business. So a lot of it I drew like maybe, a little nada. I don't know about this. I haven't heard of this person or that person. Generally, everyone that he worked with has had access to my home because that's where he started producing and did until he bought his own home and produced. And so I was used to all of the groups and individuals that he recorded for, being in my home. And when they came, I prepared foods according to their diets and shop for all of the snacks and things that they would need during their time there. And we tried to vacate the house during these periods of time. I'm doing daycare from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and he has the house from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And so the only difference was that when he had guests in the house, generally from Thanksgiving to the New Year, it was like nonstop and period. He just consumed that space, which I was very happy about. He always did great work. I never had to worry. I knew where he was. And he had not a lot of time for folly. Of course, he liked going to the strip clubs and things. That was part of their regimen with the guys, is that they worked, get these songs down, finish them before the end of the time period he would give them. So many songs they had to do in a day. And that was their reward. It's R&R.
That was the cherry on top.
That was the cherry on top.
Okay, I'm not mad at that.
And I'm thankful for that, because by him leaving here in this place at the young age of 32, I was very grateful that he got a chance to enjoy some manly things or things of his desire, because otherwise he would have been work, never enjoying anything in his life. And so that would have really hurt me that he didn't have that opportunity. So I'm grateful for those girls that shook it up, and gave him an inspiration to make that kind of music that they could bump to, and that kind of thing. But yes, there are things in there. I do agree with the rhythms and things that he did, because he did create a type of different pattern for drumming and keys and how he coordinated his music. He never wanted it to be precise like handwritten music, because he had soul in him, and he didn't have to adhere to that. He wanted something, he felt something better and more energetic. And so, when we do black music, we hear what's regular, but we always hear something additional in our head. We may not sing it, just like a gospel singer. She's going to put that touch on it, and she's going to make that song hers. And it's something that's not written, but it's something that comes from here and here.
Right.
That energy. So, yes, he created through that energy. And he didn't have a ceiling. He didn't let it, someone tell him, say, well, no, that doesn't go there. So you just stay in here. That's where that belongs. No, he heard something far beyond that, and he dared to reach for it. And so I'm grateful because it made him who he was. You know, he was that creator, like a scientist with his music. So yes, a lot of that was why he created something that was different, his timing, his patterns. And I even had an interview last year during this time of year in Miami Music Fest, World Music Fest in Miami. And I had an interview about the timing and his drum patterning. But I attributed at that moment, it hit me back when he was playing drums, because he played drums as early as 10 and 11. And I couldn't afford a drum set. He wanted a drum set that year. All I could afford was a snare drum. So I went to Guitar Center and I got a nice snare drum. Because he was young, but I knew that the way he performed and he created, a kid drum wasn't going to do him any good. I was like, throw that out the window, forget that. Get him something real, because he was far beyond that. And I couldn't get the drumsticks. They didn't have any at that time for me. So they directed me to somewhere else. And I said, okay, I know where I can get the drumsticks at another music store near home. But when I got there, they didn't have any. I guess a lot of people were getting drums and drumsticks. But the guy said, well, I have some nice brushes. I chose to get the brushes so that he would be able to, on Christmas Day, be able to play. Even though it was just a snare, not a set of drums, I knew that he could work with it. And he made that snare drum sound like a whole drum
He
set.
absolutely.
Oh, my
no
God.
No question.
So he just had it in him. He accepted it. He was appreciative. And, I mean, I didn't know how far it would go, but he'd already had formal piano lessons, and was playing the cello in school, and then baritone, because his teacher told him if he played the cello for him, for her rather, that semester, he could definitely be in the drum class. You know how you'd have to take it home and rehearse. He didn't want anybody to see him with it because he was embarrassed, because that's not the cool instrument.
Really, the cello wasn't wasn't the cool
that
instrument.
Big thing, and he's tiny. He's a small of stature, so he didn't want to be caught carrying him, cutting through alleys to get back home. So
Really?
took him, yes.
Wow. So anybody that plays the cello, it's okay, because you
It's
never
cool.
can tell where it's going to take you. You mentioned something about the timing earlier.
Yes.
Something that I found very fascinating. And that's one thing about the book. I learned a lot. The gentleman that wrote this book, what's his name?
Charnis.
Yes, Mr. Charnis. Yeah, he wrote the hell out of this book
Yes.
from a musical standpoint. He broke down this piece about the timing.
Yes.
And I wasn't aware that like jazz artists intentionally sometime pushed notes further, or they kind of got off time on purpose.
Thank you.
Intentionally got off of time. And this is what your son did. He intentionally took things a little millisecond off to make it sound different than anyone else's stuff.
Because you don't want to pattern yourself after someone else. You want to be the creator that you are. When young children come into this world, they come with that special gift.
Did that come from jazz? Do you think it came from jazz, or did it?
It came because he was gifted for that. His dad was a jazz musician, but he was open to every genre of music in that home. He sang in the church choir.
Well, he definitely did something different, and it changed his production style, changed the face of hip hop, and the rippling effect of what he did. And then other producers began to do some of the same things and have the same sound. Was he upset about that? I know in the book they talk, was he okay with when people started to kind of bite his style?
He was okay up to a certain point, but he wasn't upset about it. But he mentioned once during an interview that he appreciated that they would like something that he was doing, but he was hoping that they would listen to what he had done, take that, and use it to create something very special of their own, to expound upon it. So maybe they could make it even greater, or something in their head will add a twist, or just that little something that will make it iconic. And he wished that for everyone. He he wasn't worried about somebody else fighting and stuff, or he was really pretty laid back about that.
Good. So, how much influence was Detroit and Motown on the J Dilla sound?
I think because he was spinning records in the park at 2 years old. Okay, he wasn't around children, and we would take him. We had a business going. His dad worked at Ford's during the day, and I ran a restaurant during the day as well, and had staff there. So I had like 2 babysitters. I opened at 6 a.m. and then I went out on lunchtime after the lunch crowd left and check on my kids, and then come back down. And then at that time it was just Dilla, and I had a foster son, Earl, that I raised till he was from 2 to 24. And, it was them just checking on them. And then when I had my daughter, Martha, then that gave me a little more time. I had to have 2 sitters longer. So the restaurant was like so packed. It was like nonstop from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. was when we closed. So during the summer months, it would be still light outside. We'd take him down to the park with his little 45s on his arm and his Fisher Price. And he spin records in the park.
At what age was this? Now,
he was 2.
wait a minute, like
Yeah.
2 years old.
2 years old.
He was DJing
He was
at
DJing
2
at 2
years old.
He loved it. And he wasn't a talker. He never played like a regular kid. It was like solely music. He was absorbed with music. The only time he played with little cars or the trucks, that was on Christmas Day. My foster son, Earl, we'd buy him things like, little boy things, car sets and Tonka trucks and the little car wire sets and everything, and all of the little cars that you would save up, and everything, the memorabilia type cars. And Dilla would spend a half hour with him. They were close. It's that Dilla he had no time for anything but the music. He would play a half hour. After that, he'd be like, okay, I'm playing my records, And Earl would continue. He understood. Earl played with his trucks and things until we made him, come to eat or either get ready to go to bed. They're playing away. But Dilla was the music is what drew him, and what I feel like his whole heartbeat was because of the melodies and the music. In the park, I hadn't really taught him to read at 2, but he knew when people asked him, little guy, they didn't know. I don't think they knew how old he was. I think they might have thought he was a little older because he had all these 45s. He had all the Motown stuff. Every Friday he got to go to the record shop and get a new record. He was such a great kid that we just would take him to the record store and let him pick a new record because we knew it's what he liked.
See, that's beautiful right there. Let's just park right here for message.
Yeah.
Message. See, you remind me of my mom. So my mother, I'm a professional radio personality, but it came from DJing first.
Yes.
And my mother went and got a loan because I saw these 2 speakers that were in a city 20 miles away that I wanted for $1,800.
Oh my God.
But it was those speakers that allowed me to then get my turntables and then to start DJing. And I ended up on a college radio station.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up on that college radio station for 4 years. When I got out of college, a major radio station in Dallas, Texas, gave me my first shot.
Oh, wow.
And I've been in the radio business ever since then, in the media, television, radio. And
Great investment, huh?
Yeah. So, but you did the same thing. You gave your child the tools that he needed to thrive. And I think that is something that we can't just sweep over that.
Well, no, I think some parents miss it. I know for a fact that there are parents that have gifted children and they're not aware. The children seem to, and I'm only speaking from my child development years and working with, I had done daycare and child development, had 2 daycares for like 30 years. Wow. Okay. So it's that not wanting to disturb parents that are working hard every day and they get off work. Generally, they're at daycare. They come home with you and their parent is exhausted. Maybe they're going to give them something quick to eat because they're exhausted. Every parent is not prepared to come home and cook a whole meal after a day's work, driving to the daycare, then to the job, then from there to the daycare, then back home. And I understood this because Dilla went to daycare for a little while at the restaurant. It was a half a day. He didn't want to go. And when I dropped him off, he would cry and kick. But then I go to get him 2 hours later, and he cried and kicked because he didn't want to come home. So I'm in total confusion. I don't know what's going on. He was social, but I guess the kids weren't playing like he wanted to play. For his play, it was about music. It was not about anything else social. He was very quiet, very well behaved.
You mentioned the snare drum and the
Yes,
brushes.
the
What
brushes.
other instruments did you buy for J Dilla?
Well, what I did was each Christmas, because we were poor, okay, Mr. Yancey worked at Ford, but he had 2 families. I was his second wife.
Mm-hmm.
So we get them one thing they desired for Christmas. It didn't matter. It could be something that was a little expensive. We try to work on it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
But they got that one thing we try to get. And Dilla, of course, with him having a Fisher Price, by the time he decided to want something new, by the time he was 5, he wanted a real turntable, stylus and all. So it's cheap. Okay, the first one, but it was real. Okay, and by the second year, he wanted 2. So
he wanted 2 turntables.
Yeah, I never understood that. I wasn't getting it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That DJs were using 2 turntables. I'm like, why would he want 2? When I was young, I still had the Victor roll. I was rolling. Playing since 78. But I didn't get it. And that's just like I'm saying, tied to parents that don't understand what's changing in the world around them. And so I didn't know, but we got him the 2.
What was his reaction when you got him the very first turntable? Tell me that story.
He was very excited, and he took it and went to his corner to be by himself to play records and not to bother anyone. He just played his records. Very conscious of other people in the house, playing it low. Never had to tell him, turn that down. He was satisfied being in his own space, and he played his records. And then we had the, also was the 8-tracks back in then. So
Not the 8-tracks.
Yes, 8-tracks back then. You had a big fat old yellow, high yellow looking things. And so he had one of those too that I think he was gifted by somebody in the family, and some 8-track tapes, which he really never really played a lot because I think maybe the choice of the music they gave him wasn't like his speed.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted more adult things, and that's where his head was at. He had listened, lullaby music for him to put him to sleep was jazz. So his dad played jazz. It was comforting to his dad, to hear jazz playing at night. He had to get up and go to work in the morning. He had to hear something, before he get to that factory.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that was it. And I enjoyed it because it gave me a chance to listen to the vocals and jazz artists, like that. So it was good for me too.
A couple of weeks ago, I reached out to a friend of mine
Yes.
who sings backup, is one of the family members of George Clinton.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course, Mr. Clinton spent a lot of time in Detroit
Yes.
with Parliament Funkadelic, Parlette, whatever you want to call him. And I talked to his backup singer. I was like, hey, I'm trying to reach Amp Fiddler. And I did not know that he just made his transition a couple of months ago.
Yes.
So RIP to
The Amp.
Amp.
my
And
God.
the reason why I bring up his name is because from what I heard, and I want you to let me know if this is true or not, the very first time that J Dilla got to work on some real sound equipment in the MPC was with Amp Fiddler.
Yes.
Tell us how that happened.
Amp Fiddler always had an open door for any young person that was interested in music. And Dilla heard about it and asked Amp when he saw him once, I heard you have a lot of equipment down there, and there was, look, for Dilla, he had to prepare himself to say that. He would never just say something just like it had to be burning inside of him for him to approach him and ask. But he was very timid, like kind of soft spoken. And Amp said, yeah, I got stuff down there. Why, whatever, what you're interested in. And he told him, he told him what he played, the formal instruction he had, and that he was interested in creating music. He wanted to know about, working in the studio, doing that studio stuff,
Did he ever come home and tell you what was going on
he told
at
me
Amp's house? What did he tell you?
You know what? He didn't realize that I had met Amp. Before that, I didn't realize that Amp was the person that was helping young people in the area. Amp came to a church concert that I was in, and I was introduced to him by a friend of mine, a girl, Valerie Ford, that had passed away. She passed away very early.
Mm-hmm.
But I had met him before, and he had come to church concert. I had no idea, because by him being in the church and visiting the church, I didn't know that was the same guy, I just knew he was tall like him and everything. And but he was so warm and such a gentleman, and I could tell he was very respectful, and I remembered him from that. But then when my son told me that he had talked to this guy, Amp, and I'm just thinking to myself, I thought that was the guy, sounded like the guy that I had met before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, because when I talked to the girl Valerie, because she would come by to see Mr. Yancey, because she was helping her with her vocals. She wanted to audition for something on Broadway, and he was working with people that wanted to rehearse or whatever. House was always filled with somebody working on something, either they're playing bass or any instrument or vocals. And so Valerie was one of those people. And I had met him, so I'm like, sure. Well, he lived right down the street, like almost around the corner and across the street,
Okay.
So that was in the neighborhood, and it was safe. And that was one of the things. He and his brother Bubs, they would help people out and encourage them. There are many jazz artists, and as well as rappers or vocalists that came out of Camp Amp. He gave his time freely, took care of those guys, mentored them, gave them every opportunity to envision and to play and to learn with everything that he had. He was very, very giving. And he holds a special place in my heart, because had it not been for him,
we would not be sitting here today.
Because he introduced Dilla to the world.
Yes.
Dilla would be struggling just like many other artists trying to make that thing happen, but it was already planned.
Already predestined.
No way that would have happened, because there were too many young people in Conant Gardens, much less in this world, that could have been in that space. But Dilla was one that was chosen. He left early, but he had a job that was given to him from above, and he did it.
Oh, he did his job, clearly. So let's talk about Ma Duke's house.
Okay. What about
now? Okay, so was it the house on Nevada?
On Nevada, yes.
The house on Nevada. Now,
Yes.
I've only been to Detroit one time.
Okay.
But I gotta come to Detroit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you see me on Nevada, hey, Ely, what you doing over here?
Let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna place my hand on the wall, feel the vibrations.
Look, I'm trying to acquire that piece of property, myself now, to make it something historical.
You should. That is that should be the state of Michigan, and Detroit
Yes.
needs to make that
It should
home.
happen.
It
Yes.
should be a national, something national.
It really should. People fly in from Paris and everything.
Absolutely.
Fat Cat, Ronnie Euro, actually has a touring service. And when he's not on the road, he's there. He has a business, and he takes people all around, because there was a need, rather. It was necessary for someone to take people to the right places, because people are going to come to Detroit. They want to come. They want to know. They want music knowledge. They
Yes.
want Motown. They go there. They want to know about Dilla. They want to know about other artists there. They want to know about, Eminem, Kid Rock, and everything, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Eminem was one of the people that came to that basement too. with
Mm-hmm.
Dilla.
So it's Hitsville.
Yeah.
It's 8 Mile
8 Mile, yes.
and Nevada.
In Nevada.
In Nevada,
Yeah,
that's where
yeah.
you need to go
I'm telling
if you want to go to the spot where the music that changed the world came from. So now, in that basement.
in that basement. And that's what it's called, the basement.
The basement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the basement. So just imagine we walk downstairs. What do I see in this basement?
You see, sort of like when we're sitting here, around the entire basement, and it covers the full length of. It's a ranch home, but it's not. It looks tiny, but it's huge on the inside.
Mhm.
And against every wall, it's like covered with bench seating, deep enough and wide enough for record storage. So in every space is record storage. It's like like having a room full of records that, if it was the long way,
Mhm.
it would cover the entire wall from top to bottom. And they went across the entire basement.
So now, a lot of famous people came to Ma Duke's house and
Yes.
came down in that basement.
Yes.
Okay. Like, who's like one of the first famous people that came to the house and came to the basement
First
with J
one.
Dilla?
Jeez. I'm going to say Q-Tip because they were doing a lot of work before he started taking on other people.
Mhm.
And he would always stop by the daycare before he would leave. And my teachers would just like peaches.
So Q-Tip called the house
He called every day. They talked
when he
every day.
first called and he was looking for J Dilla. Who picked up the
Yeah.
phone? Was that you or somebody else?
No, that was one of my staff. They picked the phone up. And they were like going crazy. I couldn't react because I had remember that day, and I had a parent at the table. I couldn't react like I wanted to, like my staff was reacting. But it was something that was profound. We was all excited, but he was, it's just that they knew that voice. Oh, my God.
So was J Dilla home when
No,
he wasn't
he
home?
wasn't home. That was his time out. He would have been back home. He probably was having lunch with somebody or something at that time.
What was his reaction when he found out the Q-Tip called the house?
Well, he was cool with it. He was excited, but he never displayed excitement. He always was reserved. And when he would be about to bust open, he just hold his hand over his mouth and close his eyes, but he never let out a sound. He just holds it.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I don't know if it. I really don't know. I never questioned it because it was so rare. He appreciated things, but he never let out a lot. You know what? I'm just going to say he might have had a lot of disappointment growing up. He struggled. We had struggling household.
The reason why I bring up Q-Tip is because, a lot of people say that Q-Tip was the one that first heard Dilla's music, and he introduced him to multiple people in
He
the
did.
business.
That's true. Amp took Dilla on that bus during that Lollapalooza tour they did.
and it came to Detroit.
And he had been telling Dilla, I got something special for you. Just keep on doing your work. Work on whatever it was that they were working on in his basement. And Dilla was like, okay. And he told me, he said, Ma, I got to get dressed today because Amp's going to stop by. I don't know what time he's going to stop by, but he's going to stop by today because he's going to take me somewhere. He got a special surprise for me or whatever. I said, well, where are you going? He didn't know. I said, what are you wearing? He didn't know what to wear. He had OCD like to the max, okay? Everything had to be, he did his own ironing. Because even though I iron, and I pride myself in ironing the old-fashioned way, because I used to iron before they had the electric ones, okay? And I would do a mean crease, but for him, his pants had to stand up by themselves.
But he was the same way with the music too.
Yes. He had OCD.
Yeah. I mean,
His refrigerator, if he had Coke, all the C's had to be in direct formation from the Coke. Couldn't be just a Coke can up there. He better be able to see that same C all the way back to the back of the refrigerator. And Sprite couldn't touch the Coke can. It had to be the same way, precisely done. Red apples had to be separate from the green apples. If he had Jell-O, they couldn't be mixed. It had to be a straight line, coordinated, everything. No crumb anywhere, white glove test. Had to have his house clean. Had to be that way. He didn't get it from at home, believe me, because I wouldn't be in a nutcase with a straitjacket because we had a lot of traffic and a lot of kids all the time. But it was just something, he just wanted that. It had to be that way. It had to be super clean, no dust, no crumb, or anything.
wow. So let's talk about school.
All right.
Because we know that Dilla wanted to go to a different school, and you made I don't know if you guys had a negotiation.
We had a negotiation.
What was the whole story behind
It wasn't
that?
blackmail.
Yeah, but you did something.
I bribed him. Well, let me tell you, in junior high, they would pick, before graduation in high school, they would pick one student from each junior high to go to Davis Aero Technical School. And only one. You had to have great grades. You had to have great citizenship. And your social, you had to be really social, beyond the citizenship. Dilla was all those things. He never had to study. He did his work in school. Homework usually was done before he came home from school. I started my children reading early, so they were able to handle their math and sciences. It was never a problem because they went to school ready.
He wanted to go to a different school. He wanted to go to Pershing with his friends. But
down the street from where we lived.
But you were adamant about him not going.
Because he had the opportunity to go to Davis Aerotech. They chose him. And he said okay at first, but he didn't know that nobody else was going. He's like, I don't want to go there. This was almost at the time. I'm elated. I'm so happy. I'm smiling all summer because my baby going to Davis Aerotech. He's going to graduate from high school with a year of college already earned.
Okay.
So that was what it was. And it's no way in the world I'm going to let that pass. So I insisted. So he's like, no, I don't. I said, well, this is what I want you to do. If you just go 1 year, just 1 year, I will buy you every silk shirt in every color.
And he went for it. He was okay with it.
Well, he was DJ Silk at the time. Now this is why he became DJ Silk. He had all these silk shirts, right?
Okay.
And he went to school for Aerotech, but they found out that he was DJing and doing parties and weddings and things on the side on the weekends. And instead of him getting deeper and deeper into the academics, he turned the thing into doing a DJ set every 2 weeks at the school.
Oh, really?
So, yes.
Well, we see how that turned out.
And we see how that turned out. So, and he had his favorite teachers there. He was a great spot welder. He was great at doing the instrumentation panels for the aircraft. He was so good at all of the things that he was doing. And so I was like, well, heck, if he could do this good, he could go another year. And that's what I'm like, go another year. Because if you don't like it and you get an A's, then you should go another year.
This went on to his senior year to graduation?
Because the last year, he wasn't speaking to me by that third year. So I accepted
he wasn't
that.
speaking to you about the third year?
He couldn't say anything, but I knew he was hurt because I had broken my promise. I had never done that. But it was so important to me for him to have something to fall back on. And he said to me when he got home, I'm still fussing on it. I'm fussing, not hollering, but just fussing about it. He said, tell me. I said, you got one science. You don't even have to go all the time. Just you got one science and you could be done. He said, well, you going to take the science from me? I said, no, I got a business to run. I'm not taking no science class for you. So, excuse me. So he said, well, I can't do it. He said, what job am I going to get? Paying me what I get for making one beat. He said, I just got $35,000 for one beat. Took me 15 or 20 minutes to make it.
And your response was?
I had no response. He said to me, I'm still, my mouth is like hanging. I remember, I'm looking at this actual moment as I'm telling you. And I'm standing there dumbfounded because he's making it make sense. And I have promised 3 times, and I lied because I kept making him go back. And he was just done with it. I had never lied to him or broken his. One time I had lied to him. He reminded me of that when he was 5 years old. But other than that, I never lied to him or broke a promise.
When did you realize that your son, J Dilla, was a musical genius? When did you realize it?
I had followed him at home in the States, but I had not followed, his work overseas and realized how far his work had gone overseas. I didn't know that they had his name on the Berlin Wall and that they had.
He got a whole street in France.
Yes, a street in France and people in France with Dilla dancers and children, and his music was being played for children that were deaf in the schools because it helps. I had educators reaching out to me and telling me what the music has done, and especially for children that were at risk and in trouble. The whole time, I really did not know how far the reach had been. I knew how much it meant to me, but then I'm biased. This is my kid.
Right, exactly.
Everything he did, I loved
your baby.
all of his music, So I'm like, okay, I'm really, and I'd be upstairs, and sometimes I get near the kitchen doorway and listen, and he could hear my footsteps. I guess how you could hear the floor, because I used to wonder how did he know I was at the kitchen doorway to the basement, and he'd meet me as I lean over, he'd be looking up at me. He said, "Where you going, lady?" And I'm like, I'm just checking. He said, "Oh no, don't come down here. Don't come down here."
Oh, really? So when he was in his space, you had to fall back.
Spot. That was his spot.
Really?
No,
you couldn't go in your own basement?
I know, because I understood that was his space, and he needed privacy. He was making big music for big people, and I was so proud of him because everyone loved how he handled them.
Is there any particular record that you heard coming from the basement that you can just remember today that you were like, I remember hearing that song coming out the basement, and now it's all over the radio or everyone's talking about this record? What would that record be?
Oh my goodness!
I know there's probably about 20.
And you know what? I love Vibrant Thing.
Vibrant Thing?
Vibrant Thing.
Q-Tip.
Yes. I knew because it struck me like lightning when I heard the first three beats. I identified. I wasn't at home. I was in the truck coming from picking my granddaughter up from school. And I was at the light at 6 Mile and Van Dyke. And I'm sitting there. And I'm driving Dilla's truck, okay? I'm driving his, was it a green Lexus? And I'm at the light. Seemed like the light's taking long. And this music came on from the car next to me. And they had it pumping loud. And I heard the first three beats. And I jumped up and I'm like, oh my God. And my granddaughter started screaming. She said, that's James. I said, oh my God, it is James. That's James. Music. And we went crazy. We went searching for the radio station and we got it. She found the radio station. Of course, I don't know what I'm doing, trying to drive. And we turned the speakers on blast. And, he had big, giant woofers put in that truck. And people were looking at me like I was a nut. There is this old lady with gray hair, full of gray hair, and she's blowing the music up like she's a nutcase, and we bouncing in that car, going crazy and screaming. And I know I look like a complete idiot. I was in love with it, and every time I hear that song, I cannot sit still. It's like, forget whatever anybody thinks. I'm getting up and I'm dancing, and that's it.
So what about the record that he did for Common, Delight? I've seen photos of Common in the basement on Nevada, in Detroit, with Dilla.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that record, and then I also want to talk about the relationship between Common and your son. That's that's a brotherhood. We already know that.
You said the word. True meaning of Uma. That is a son that I didn't give birth to, but opened his arms and wanted nothing but the best. It was so hard for him. Those last 2 years that I moved to California to care for Dilla.
And you were at Common's house?
At Common, yeah. He got that place just so we would have enough bedrooms, that we each have our own bedroom. I had mine, he had one, and Dilla had one, and he was barely there because, he was making movies then, and cars were picking him up like every other day. He was flying out somewhere, But it was, when he did come home, I can only think about how, I don't know how it was for him. I know it had to really scare him and hurt his heart because Dilla was so ill. We spent those 2 years, we spent 3/4 of each of those 2 years in Cedars-Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
And he may come home for a week or so, and then he had to rush back. Platelet count dropped to almost, they don't know how he was still alive and breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Kidney shut down, everything, you know. He was having plasmapheresis every couple of days. He was having, his kidney treatments, dialysis. After he got out, he was having it 3 times a week. But while in the hospital, he was basically almost having it every day, and infection starting, and then it makes it more complicated, and you're more hours on the kidney, dialysis and everything. But he went through something, but he fought a good fight. He fought and he fought and he prayed and asked God to give him time to finish his work. One song left a couple of weeks before he passed away. It was presented on the 7th, for his birthday, the 7th of February.
Mm-hmm.
And we celebrated that day with cake at the house. Common had bought him a special made cake for him healthy, and had it done up. At that time, he and Taraji were together, and they bought the cake by a tremendous, wonderful. How could I say this? How when you shouldn't eat like sweet cakes, and it looks like the most rich cake you ever had, but it was all healthy, and it was the most beautiful thing. And then Peanut Butter Wolf came by from Stone's Throw and bought Dilla a cake for his birthday that day, and it was of the shape of a donut.
So was it tough for you when Dilla decided to go to Brazil with Madlib?
Yes, it was tough. However, he wanted to do it. And it was tough for me being at the house waiting for him to come back. I didn't sleep. I got calls before they even got to where they were supposed to go. By the time he made it off the plane, he was so sick. And the guys were calling me, let me know that he wasn't good. They had to put him in a hospital there. And
But Madlib and the guys didn't know how sick that he was.
Yeah, but I had no idea that he wouldn't be able to make it. I think the plane ride might have induced something that was maybe not already right.
High altitudes.
Yes, high altitude.
Pressure.
Exactly, that pressure. And his body was like subject to change at any hour. That had been what the case was for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. But he did that twice. He went to Brazil, and then he went to Europe and was on stage with Slum Village as well. Where
we did that tour together.
You were there?
I was with him the whole tour. I had to be there. It was his 24-hour nurse. He could do nothing for himself. But I was so grateful that I was there. That was the greatest gift that God has given me, the opportunity to take care of my son and have that time with him those last 2 years. I birthed him, nurtured him,
mm-hmm.
and then it was my job again to care for him until he left this place. So
he felt like it was very necessary for him to do this.
he said to me, I said, well, James, you don't have to do this tour. Because it was originally supposed to be in August. But he hadn't learned to walk again. He had to learn to walk again 3 times. He had to learn to swallow again 3 times. He had to learn to write again 3 times. I remember the first time when he came out of this breakdown with the kidneys and different things with his body, and he had plasma, everything going crazy with him. And he wanted something from downstairs, but his throat was sore. He had been sick, and they took the tubes out. He was doing pretty good. And he wanted to tell me something, so he couldn't get it out verbally. So he pointed for me to give him the pad. And I had the little pad over here. And I handed it to him. And he wanted a pencil. I gave him the pencil. And he was so frustrated because he couldn't get his head and hand to work together.
One thing that I find amazing about your son and his legacy And now what we're seeing now is nothing short than incredible. I never in my entire life thought that I would see an event here in the District of Columbia that would bring together the great Duke Ellington and a hip hop producer, and to share their music on stage with Robert Glasper, to have an event that celebrate both of these men at the same damn time.
I know.
So how did that make you feel?
Incredible. It was like nothing. All I could say was when Robert called me, like, wow. I'm like blown away, because when he said Duke, I would have come to any concert.
Right, exactly. Especially being a fan of jazz.
Exactly. And Duke Ellington, I'm like, I love DC. The few years that I lived here with Tony, I loved it. I would walk every day. It was so different for me, the vibe and the energy. That I had never walked like that in Detroit, because I already know better. I was born and raised there, so I already know what you don't do by yourself. But I warmed up to a city that was gracious and busy and about different business going on during the day, and so much business. And I was an amazement for everything that was happening. So it was a good place for me, and it was a good needed thing, because it took me from out of this cocoon that I had buried myself into after Dilla.
Mm-hmm.
I was in mourning for 10 years. I didn't know. Didn't really cry, because I was supporting all of the gentlemen and the men that were there for his homegoing, and trying to keep them balanced, because they were going through it.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
They were
Common, Pete Rock, Amir.
Dave Chappelle and Amir met me at the house when I left the hospital when he passed away. When I got back, and I was like, I don't know what space I was in the world, because I had never been in that space.
Mm-hmm.
That lonely, dark space. But when I saw them on my doorstep, because I knew that they loved him and they were there.
Well, love is definitely a healer, and we know that God is love. Not trying to take it to church.
Oh no, but that's me all day.
And I'm just, amen, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. You are worthy to be praised. We're going to give you all the glory right now on camera, Lord. Thank you.
Right.
So now, just like the Kennedy Center event and all these other events that are happening around not just the country, but the world in celebration of your son and his legacy. Like, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel, oh my God. How they say, I love you to the moon and back. I'm still orbiting. And I don't know if I'll come down from that space as long as I live.
I wanted to say thank you for the merch.
Oh my God.
Thank you for the merch. Oh my God. Man, when that package came to my house with this in it, my t-shirts and my other gear, because I mean, I have I got the albums that I have at my house. I have The Shining.
Yes.
I never took the plastic off it.
Wow.
I was going to bring it to have you autograph. I was like, I don't want to seem like I'm doing too much.
You know what? I'm going to tell you now. You need to get it the next time I come.
Okay.
Because when I sign it, it automatically it doubles.
Okay, Shining, Dilla Donuts. I still need to get the Rough Draft album.
Okay.
I want that because I wanna frame those joints up. But thank you for the merch, because this is another way that you're keeping his legacy alive, and people saw me today.
Yes.
I was at the embassy of South Africa today with this group Biko's Manor.
Okay.
These little kids and the people that they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's J Dilla. They're like, okay, let me look. And it's helping to keep his legacy alive.
It's youth. They're not even what do you call them? They're preteens, puberty age and puberty age, and they're Dilla fans now. They're buying and stuff. They want memorabilia. I told Tony the other day, I said we have to get some T-shirts for our little people that are Dilla fans. Because we haven't really geared it for youth, unless it's some like youth day. We do a lot of things like that with different communities and work with, other nonprofits that I help and work with in different communities. I'm always open for helping.
Okay, so where can we find the merch?
You can find it at J Dilla Merchandise.
Okay, and is that the website?
That's the website, and Tony does the artistry, and yes, that's our place.
Wonderful.
Official My Dukes Presents. It'll take you right there.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to sit down and have this one-on-one. It's great to see you again. And I pray that God continues to bless you with the work that he set you out to do. I commend you. You're one of the strongest mothers that I've ever met.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been indeed an honor and a pleasure being here. I've loved every moment, and thank you so much.
All right. Appreciate you. God bless you. Dilla time. Get the book. Get the gear. Get the music, man. Boy, if you saw my J Dilla playlist on iTunes, and I'm still uncovering records that I never heard before, it's like it just keeps going. It just keeps going. If you don't know by now, I don't know if you ever know, but folks, ladies and gentlemen, we celebrate J Dilla, and make sure you get some of that music for real. It's medicine, and we'll see you next time. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time on Live from the District. Peace.
Live from the district. Live from the district. Live from the district.